Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It is NFL Week 15. Ian Cameron, and look who's back in the house. I found my quarterback again. He left my team. I didn't know if I was going to see him again, but he's back now. He's ready to go back on the field, get under center, and score us some touchdowns here on the Football Frenzy show again. Reunited, and it feels so good. I'm probably making myself sound like an old man singing that. That's Peaches and Herb from back in the 70s. A little before your time for sure, Philip.
Yeah.
He is back. Our guy, Philip Nelson, after 3 weeks away, is back here on the Football Frenzy. How are you? Long time no see.
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to be back. I had to go on the IR for a little bit there, a lot of travel and everything. So travel, hunting, just a lot of stuff going on. But I'm really glad to be back, and I'm ready to dissect this Week 15 with you.
No doubt. We're down to the really the crunch time of the NFL regular season. Division races heating up. Anyone can win the NFC West, and that's where we're going to end up starting because of just how crazy it is. We've got Thursday night football, the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 2.5-point home favorites, 48.5. The total is a great matchup to start NFL Week 15. Like I said, anyone is still alive to win this division. Yes, Seattle is leading the division right now, but the Rams are definitely alive after a huge win against the Bills last week. San Francisco, it looks like they were falling apart. Injuries galore. They get beaten down in Buffalo in the snow a couple weeks ago, but they come back and they have a dominant victory against the Chicago Bears last week. They actually had a team meeting before that and kind of like, hey, if we're going to make a run and we're going to be a playoff team, it's got to start now with that Chicago game. And sure enough, you could tell they came out ready. It was the best execution they've had. Both sides of their defense was dominant in the first half. Brock Purdy and the offense really got rolling in that first half too. Kittle and Jawan Jennings were very big for them in the passing game against the Bears last week. Now we'll see if they can build on that. Meanwhile, the Rams, what an impressive offensive performance. It felt like watching it, Phil, it was almost the perfect offensive performance from the Rams, what they did against Buffalo. They ran the ball down the Bills' throat the whole game with Kyren Williams. Stafford was on point, looked like vintage in his prime, Matthew Stafford. And some of the catches that both Cooper Kupp, somehow cradling the football against his chest for one of the touchdowns, the unbelievable double toe tap catch at the sideline that Puka Nacua made last week against Buffalo, a spectacular catch that was, and they just were zipping that ball all over the place. They were running it, they were throwing it against a very good, obviously, Buffalo team, and you got to give the Rams credit for that, but you're coming off a big win like that against a really good team. You had to work for it. You had to hang on for dear life at the end as well, and now you've got to kind of rally back now following a huge win like that. Took a lot out of you physically as well, and mentally, emotionally, against a great team like the Buffalo Bills. And you got to go on the road on a short week to face a 49ers team that I think feels like they got new life again, and a 49ers team that don't look now getting a lot of key pieces back from injury finally. They're still banged up at running back. McCaffrey and Mason are still out, so they're down to Isaac Guerendo and Patrick Taylor as their two running backs, but Guerendo was banged up. He will play. But more importantly, they're getting healthier on defense. They got Lenore, one of their best cornerbacks, returning recently a couple games ago. Nick Bosa just came back. And now making his season debut, it looks like, activated from the IR, Dre Greenlaw. He hasn't played all year for this San Francisco team on defense, but he will make his 49ers season debut here tonight, and it couldn't come a moment too soon in a game of this magnitude. San Francisco's saying all the right things. That they galvanized by the team meeting before the Bears game. They came out and they laid waste to Chicago, dominated that game, kind of catch the Rams on a short week. I respect, obviously, the way – and look, if Matthew Stafford plays the way he did offensively here that he did against Buffalo, I'll say salute. I'll tip my cap and say well done and probably take my money in the process here tonight in this game. But I just think I like the 49ers here at below a field goal. At home, and factor in the intangibles too. This is a divisional rematch of a game earlier this year in LA where the 49ers led most of the game into the fourth quarter, and they were up double digits. Looked like for sure they were going to put that game away, and the Rams came all the way back and they stole it from the 49ers. It was a combination Rams comeback, 49ers collapse in the fourth quarter in that game, and it was a stunning loss that the 49ers had that game in the bank, and they just couldn't hold on to it. The Rams came back. So this is and they were sick to their stomach after that game, San Francisco. Everyone was just, they couldn't believe it. It was like a 2x4 upside the head. How the fuck did we lose that football game to the Rams? And I think they're going to be looking to dish out some payback. Like I said, Rams are a team that I think is playing capable of winning this division, winning this game. But I like how this sets up for San Francisco, getting healthier on defense too. At less than a field goal, I like San Francisco, and I took them on the money line here, minus 140. It's tough to bet under with the way these two offenses can be. The Rams offense, the one thing too with the Rams, their run defense can be a little soft at times. And meanwhile, though, the 49ers defense, it was great against Chicago, facing a lot better Rams offense this time. So I do like the over a little bit. Small bet. I don't love the fact that there might be some rain tonight in Santa Clara. Might impact things, but I do at 48.5 still lean over. I like the 49ers, though, laying less than a field goal, and which is a great game here on Thursday Night Football to start off week 15. Phil, what do you think here? Rams 49ers.
Yeah, I I didn't know that about the weather, so great point. I would definitely monitor that. But the last 4 times that these teams have met, the overs hit. Both these offenses are hot. Both the defenses have been below, half the league, in points allowed to like around 23, 24. So, I would lean towards an over here. I would definitely monitor that under or the over here or the weather. And then also, I think you nailed it too. I think it's tough to beat a division opponent twice, and the one thing that I also am leery of is I think I saw Trent Williams will not be playing tonight. That's a big loss for Brock Purdy. But like you said, I think the 49ers are going to come out really ready to avenge that last collapse that they had against these guys. Both these teams, there's a lot of sense of urgency in this game. I'm looking for Deebo Samuel to get involved at some point here, but we'll see. Juwan Jennings has been playing fantastic. I could see an over here as long as this weather cooperates. And you know what? I like the 49ers money line as well. We agree on this one.
I just like the situation and how it lines up. And keep in mind, Shanahan had owned McVay, 49ers had owned the Rams really until, well, there was a playoff loss 2 years ago that the 49ers had to the Rams. And then there was but in the regular season, it was all San Francisco over the Rams until that game earlier this season where the Rams basically, stole it. That was unbelievable. The 49ers lost that game because they were up big going into the fourth, and it was a 13-3 fourth quarter for the Rams, and they won 27-24. But you're right about the over series history as well between these two teams. Recent meetings have gone up and over the total. No question about that. All right, next up, we go to Sunday now, Washington and New Orleans. Commanders, 7.5-point road favorites, 43.5 the total in this game. I'll give the Saints credit under Darren Rizzi. They have definitely fought the good fight so far this season, and they've actually been a very competitive team since Rizzi took over and they fired Dennis Allen. We've seen a pretty decent response from this Saints team, but it kind of feels like they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. And now, of course, Derek Carr, is going to be out for several weeks now. And we'd, probably season ending, if you ask me. And we're going to have to see what the Saints are able to do now from the quarterback spot moving forward. It looks like, as of right now, there's a good potential that it's going to be. Now, they said sidelined for several weeks. It's a fracture, it's a hand injury. He's also been dealing with a concussion, yet he hasn't been ruled out completely for this game. It'll be either Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler that's going to get the start here for the Saints if Derek Carr is a no-go. We'll see how this goes, but one thing you want to factor in, too, with the New Orleans Saints and the mini run they've put together, obviously under Darren Rizzi, can they keep it up here against obviously a big game here for the Commanders as they're trying to cement their standing as a wild card team in the NFC? And what I like about Washington is, Phil, they had the 3 losses in a row against Philly, Pittsburgh. Now, the Dallas game's the one they shouldn't have lost, but they did. It was just one of those games where, they made the special teams was awful for the Commanders in that game. I remember it. It turned into a wild finish. They lost by 8, but they bounced back the very next week, and they thumped Tennessee 42-19. It was a good bounce-back game. They needed it, too, because the offense hadn't been nearly as sharp the last few games for Jaden Daniels and company, but he had a great performance against Tennessee. Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez, that tandem got back to running the football very well in that game. And you've got Washington now coming in off a bye week, and those late-season bye weeks do matter at this point in time. So, you look at New Orleans, the defense gave up just 21 to the Rams, 14 to Cleveland, 17 to Atlanta, 11 to the Giants. They've actually dug in and played some decent defensive football. We'll see if that continues here. I think Washington may be in a teaser. I don't want to lay this many points on the road with Washington. I don't, even off the bye week. But I think Washington's a good teaser option. Get them down to 1.5. I do think they win this game. I know the Saints have that 3-1 record since Darren Rizzi became the interim coach. But the wins were the Giants, the Browns, the Falcons. Okay, the Commanders are better than all three of those teams. And the good team that New Orleans faced since Rizzi took over in the interim role was the Rams. And, of course, they lost that game 21-14. So I think it's Commanders in a teaser. A game I don't love either way, but Commanders in a 6-point teaser down to -1.5, I think, is the best approach here. What do you like here, Phil? Washington, New Orleans.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a tough one as well. I don't love laying that many points down, especially on the road for the Commanders. Austin Eckler is also out. I believe he's been put on IR after that concussion. Derek Carr being out, that's a big wrench as well. I don't love betting on this game, but I think that's a good thought with the teaser for sure. I think the Commanders definitely win this one. I just don't know what's going on with the Saints. They're belittled with injuries. They're starting quarterbacks out. So, whether or not this total is going to hit as well. I mean, I feel like that depends on if the Saints can move the ball, which I'm not sure of. But I would probably like the Commanders on a teaser as well. But I wouldn't want to lay that many points down.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Although, of course, with a dog barking at this particular game in the background, maybe we should be betting New Orleans here. Maybe
right.
Yeah, right. The dogs
delivery guy just came out. He's the protector.
Yeah. Is that a sign? We should be betting the Saints here,
right?
No, not to me. It doesn't sound like it doesn't sound that way to Philip either.
No.
From the sounds of things. All right, Miami and Houston. We've got Houston 3-point home favorites, 46.5 the total here in this game. So Miami's an interesting team to look at since Tua's been back, and you really have to focus on the game since Tua's been back. Throw out all those games when they were struggling before that, because they had Tim Boyle and they had Skylar Thompson, as their quarterbacks. And the games with Tua back, they've gone 4-3 in the 7 games straight up and against the spread. They lost by 1 to Arizona. The offense played well enough, scored 27. 30-27 in Buffalo when Tyler Bass nailed that long 60-yard kick to beat them. Again, Tua and the offense played well. They got the 3 wins in a row against the Rams on the road, which was a very good win. The Raiders and the Patriots at home, not so much. Those were games they should have won, and they did. And then they lost at Green Bay 30-17. Cold weather Tua, cold weather Miami problems, reestablished themselves once again in that game. And then last week against the Jets, I liked what I saw from the offense. Moved the ball every time they had the ball against the Jets, every possession. But the defense, man, was horrible for Miami in that game. And they continue to have issues covering in the secondary. Teams are continuing to start to run the football with success against them as well. But more importantly, that secondary gives up 339 yards to old man Aaron Rodgers, 114 to Garrett Wilson, another 109 to Devontae Adams. They gave up 200-yard receiving performances to the Jets last week, this Miami defense. So, and remember, they're still without 2 of their best pass rushers, too, with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. I mean, they still desperately miss those 2 guys, the Miami Dolphins. They're not getting the pressure on opposing quarterbacks that they need to be. So it's been a nice run, but, they beat the Rams on the road, which was solid. Rams still were dealing with injuries back then, though, if I'm not mistaken. I think one or both of Kupp and Nacua were still out at that time. At least one of them, I think, was out. And then they beat the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Jets at home. They lose to Green Bay at home. And, of course, they lose to Buffalo and Arizona, the other 2 pretty good teams they've played since Tua's been back. Meanwhile, you look at Houston. They're not thrilled with their game right now. They're only 3-3 in their last 6 games. A loss to the Jets, a loss where they blew a lead to Detroit, a loss where they were 8-point favorites at home to Will Levis and Tennessee, and they lost a couple weeks ago outright. Barely escaping Jacksonville, 23-20 before their bye week, but they're coming off the bye. They're a little bit healthier now, and there was a lot of discussion with the Texans from what I've read from DeMeco Ryans, the head coach, C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, Stephon Diggs saying it's nut up time. I think actually it's what one of the players actually used that phrase, nut up time. We got to be better than we've been. It's time to come out of the bye week with a renewed sense of purpose, with a renewed sense of playing our best football and sharpening up our game for this regular season home stretch. Because look, Houston's not even assured of the playoffs yet. They still have to solidify their positioning here in the playoffs. They're likely by default here, based on this division, going to win it. But at the same point in time, they want to be going into the playoffs feeling good. And I don't think that for weeks now they've been satisfied with the way they've played really on either side of the football. So, I see a focused, determined team coming out of the bye week against still an inconsistent Miami team, still just 2-4 on the road this season. I think at -3 spot-wise, this for me screams Houston. I think at 3 or less, I like the Texans here. I haven't bet on them for a while, and it's a good thing because they haven't been covering numbers lately. But I think now, this could be a breakout game for Stroud in the offense because Miami's defense just continues to give up big plays. It's alarming. We'll see if the Houston maybe can finally get that offense flowing for 4 quarters because we've also seen a lot of great Houston offense in the first quarter, great Houston offense in the second quarter, and then in the second half they get shut down. And it's happened a lot. They have not been a good second half team this year, the Texans. But I like this spot for them. Don't have enough faith and confidence in an inconsistent, shaky Miami team, especially on defense here in this game. So I like Houston at -3 or better. I like this over as well. Kind of feels like Miami's a bit of an over team right now. Again, they can move the ball with Tua, with Waddle, with Hill, with Achane in the backfield, but their defense is starting to leak more than a flood on a thunderstorm day here in my part. So, and as far as that's concerned, the over I think is definitely in play here with the Dolphins and the Texans as well. Philip, what do you think here with this very big AFC matchup here, Miami-Houston?
Yeah, I definitely agree on that over. I know that the over's 5-2 in the last 7 games for the Dolphins. Their offense is moving the ball, like you said. Their defense is just horrid lately. Texans coming off a bye, big game for them. Like you said, they're not solidified in the playoffs, so I expect to get their best, especially at home. I'd be a little bit leery if this was like a away game for the Dolphins up north and weather below 45 degrees, but they're going to be in Houston indoor, right? Is that a semi-open stadium or it's indoor? So you know what, I could see this being kind of a shootout type of game, especially with that Dolphins defense. And the way that they move the ball. I know Stroud is going to have to move the ball in this game. So, you know what? I agree with you here. I don't think the Texans lose. I think this is a minus. I'd take the Texans -3 and an over in this one.
Yeah. The only thing that's concerning is Miami needs every game the rest of the way. Like they're
right.
dependent on it.
So they have a sense of urgency as well. So,
and Houston's pretty good as far as they're going to win their division. It's such a crap shit division with them in Indy and Jacksonville and Tennessee. Like they're running away with that AFC South division. But at the same point in time, they have acknowledged that they want to start playing some better football here down the stretch. And that's going to be the key here for Miami. Are they going to be able to finally beat Miami, a good focused team?
Right.
And that's going to be the challenge for them. And it's going to be a challenge for that defense because, again, I have not liked what I've seen from the Dolphins on the defensive side of the football in recent games. Oh, my gosh, we have to talk about this game, unfortunately. It is a game. It does have a point spread. It does have a total. And we do talk about every game on the board every week here on the Football Frenzy Show. Jets and Jaguars. We got the New York Jets, 3.5-point road favorites, 40.5 the total. So let me start by saying there is no fucking way, none, zero, that I am laying 3.5 points with the Jets on the road. That is no chance of that happening.
Yeah.
So now you just right away, you eliminate any possibility that I'm going to be putting my hard-earned money on the Jets. And you ask yourself, can you back the Jacksonville Jaguars in some form? Can you get there with Jacksonville here in this game? And to be honest, it's not an easy case to make with the Jacksonville Jaguars either. We know it's Mac Jones' team. the rest of the season with Trevor Lawrence done for the year due to injury. With Mac Jones last week, I almost felt they won in spite of him, not because of him. 220 passing yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdown passes. But out of nowhere, here's this Jacksonville defense that actually played a pretty solid game overall against the Tennessee Titans, and they found a way to get a 10-6 victory in that game on the road against the Titans. Now, the Titans are a bottom feeder, but that's what the New York Jets are now, too. They're a bottom feeder. This is a lame duck head coach and Jeff Ulbrich. They're not bringing him back. Are you shitting me? There's not a chance that's happening. There's peewee football teams that are doing better coaching jobs than this guy right now. But there's not a chance he's going to be kept around as the full-time head coach after this year for the New York Jets. There's questions about Aaron Rodgers' future. There's questions about where a lot of these players for the Jets might end up being. And yes, the effort was good offensively for the New York Jets last week. It was a great game for the offense. Rodgers played well. Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson were big in the passing game. They lit up that Miami secondary, but the defense continues to be awful. And it's just amazing with this collection of talent, Phil, that they put together on defense, that they not only have been bad all year, they're getting worse, believe it or not. It's actually getting worse for the Jets. Like, they couldn't get one single stop. And then the stupidity continues at the end of the game. Sometimes football thought process and IQ has to come into it. You know that your defense can't get a stop against Miami. You know that you have the ball and you have a chance to win that game and end the game with the ball in your. That's why I admire the fuck out of Dan Campbell doing what he did in the game against who was it? Green Bay. It was. Well, we're going to run the football with Montgomery. We're not kicking the field goal. We're not leaving time on the clock with a depleted, injury-riddled defense against Jordan Love to try to move down the field because they couldn't stop the Packers in the second half of that Thursday night game last week. He ended the game with the first down. You can run out the clock, kick the field goal at the end, and not give the ball back to Green Bay. That's what the Jets should have thought last week against Miami. And then instead, you got Davante Adams going out of bounds, stopping the clock, gives Miami a chance to get the ball back, to get the game-tying field goal that forced overtime. And then when you knew Miami won the coin toss, you knew there was no chance in hell the Jets and Aaron Rodgers were going to get the football. They're not stopping Miami. They haven't stopped Miami all day. They're going to go right down the field, score a touchdown, win in overtime, and that's exactly what happened last week in that game against Miami. I can't lay points with this team. I can't lay points with this defense. Jacksonville or pass for me, but ultimately I'm probably going to pass. Philip, what do you think here? Jets, Jags.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same conversation. I know I haven't been on the show the last 3 weeks, but damn, I mean, it's the same conversation with the Jets. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this was Aaron Rodgers' first 300-yard passing game since 2021. So, I mean, at least something's happening.
And you still find a way to lose.
And they still find a way to lose. And, and if I'm not mistaken, I remember seeing Rodgers miss some guys too still. So, pains me to say it. Rodgers isn't the same guy. This defense is horrid. But, man, I tell you what, Mac Jones, that was brutal. Some of those interceptions he threw, I mean, it's like, damn, man. And so, you know what? I don't love this matchup here. I don't love, putting anything here. The only thing I feel pretty damn confident in is an under here. I think with Jacksonville's defense kind of coming around and just the Jets being the Jets and Mac Jones being who he is, in that offense, I like an under here. But you know what? I'm not laying 3.5 to the Jets here. God, I'd almost want to lean towards to Jets money line, maybe here. But man, I think an under here would be probably where I'd put my money.
The under, yeah. I mean, do we trust Jacksonville to score? Do we trust the Jets to stop anybody? But the Jags offense with Mac Jones ain't Tua with Miami. That I will say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see the under. I'm scared with the way the Jets defense is playing with the under. But like I said, as you can tell, it's probably a game to just watch and observe rather than getting involved in it from a betting perspective. All right, Cincinnati and Tennessee. Bengals 5-point road favorites, 46.5 being the total here in this game. So the Bengals, and I did have a small bet on Dallas last week just because I thought, how can we lay points with Cincy on the road right now with the way things are going for them? That defense is miserable. And it looked like at the very worst, we were going to get out of there with at least a point spread cover for Dallas, even if they had lost. But they blocked. Only the Dallas Cowboys could lose the game largely because of a blocked punt that they blocked. And then he can't recover it. It goes off his hands, and Cincinnati gets it back, and then they go down the field. They get the Jamar Chase touchdown to win that game 27-20. Just another brutal way to find a way to lose for the Dallas Stars. Or not the Dallas, I'm thinking hockey. Dallas Cowboys last week against the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night. Just absolutely horrific. That being said, there's nothing horrific about their offense. Joe Burrow and company still continue to move the ball. Jamar Chase had a huge game against Dallas, obviously. It's been very impressive. Obviously, due to trades and obviously injuries, there's been a lot of problems in Tennessee's secondary. That is a concern, especially with this Cincinnati strength being that passing attack. Can Cincinnati take advantage of that? That remains to be seen. On the flip side, you look at Tennessee. They've been competitive. Will Levis continues to be up and down, even with Calvin Ridley back. Westbrook Akine, has made a few decent plays in the passing game. Tony Pollard actually, has been a little bit better at times running the football in recent games. We'll see how this one plays out. I mean, I'm a little interested in Tennessee +5 because they've been competitive. Even last week against Jacksonville, they only lose by 4. It's been a while now. Remember, they had the nice win against Houston. Let's not forget that either. A couple of weeks ago. I'm still not ready to say with the Cincinnati team and especially their defense. Yeah, I'm ready to lay 5 points on the road here with the Cincinnati Bengals, not only on the road, but on a short week playing Monday Night Football in Dallas on the road. And now you're playing again on the road on a short week. So this is Tennessee or nothing for me in this spot. What do you think here, Phil? Bengals, Titans?
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think Tennessee +5, like you said, they're competitive. They hang in games. I think the big reason too for me, and this might be a little side player prop bet, but Tony Pollard versus this Bengals rush defense. I mean, holy shit, the Bengals defense, their rush defense is just Swiss cheese. I mean, there's holes everywhere, and so I mean, I would try to find like a player prop bet, Tony Pollard rushing here because I don't think that the Titans are confident in Will Levis. He just ain't the guy. But yeah, I agree here. I think there's, the Bengals are too up and down. They find ways to lose. And I think the Titans are going to be competitive here. And I think that they're going to, really try to have an emphasis on running the ball. So Tennessee, I would say +5 here for me as well.
Not to mention Rico Dowdle just ran the ball down. That's not Emmitt Smith, the second, doing that for Dallas in that game. That's Rico Dowdle. They couldn't run the football a lick early this year. Not one lick they could run at Dallas. Exactly. And they were running it down Cincy's throat. Cincy's got an embarrassing run defense at this point. 100%. You're spot on with that. It's been absolutely terrible. They're giving up 130.3 rushing yards per game this season as a team.
Yeah.
Cincinnati. And that'll take pressure off Levis if Pollard can run it. And he should be able to because everyone can run it on this team.
Right. Yeah. And I think is Spears out for Tennessee?
The other running. Let me just double check on that. We'll see.
Because I think I saw that. And I mean, if that's the case too, I mean, double me down for Pollard on some rushing yards on this game.
Yeah, Tajay Spears. Let me see. I think questionable right now is what we're looking at. Well, Pollard will be the primary back, and I think
monitor that, folks, because if Spears is out, I'm taking over rushing yards on Tony Pollard for this game.
And he should be able to have success like most running backs have had all season against the Bengals, no question. All right, the biggest point spread in NFL Week 15 is next up. The Baltimore Ravens taking on the New York Giants. And yes, the Ravens are laying now 16 on the road here against the New York Giants. Road favorites laying 16 points in this one, 42.5 being the total here in this game. I got to admit, and I'm not one typically that likes to get involved with double-digit favorites unless I have a very good reason to. I think there's maybe a very good reason for it here. Now, I know Baltimore does have Pittsburgh rematch after losing to the Steelers earlier this season. That is a slight concern, but I don't know if it's enough of a concern to mitigate how Baltimore should just destroy this team in this spot. They're coming off a loss 2 weeks ago to Philly, 24-19 to the Eagles in that much anticipated showdown. They're off a bye week, So John Harbaugh and company, extra time to prepare, get everybody healed up. And meanwhile, you've got this New York Giants team. I know they were competitive and they covered the number in defeat last week against New Orleans. And with Drew Lock at quarterback, they weren't that bad against Dallas on Thanksgiving. They only lost by 7. Well, now Drew Lock is out. He's been ruled out for this game, got injured, banged up in the New Orleans game. Say what you will about Drew Lock. He's got flaws. He's not a great quarterback by any stretch. He's a hell of a lot better. I would take him every day of the week, including Sunday, over Tommy DeVito, Mr. Tommy Cutlets, because we have seen Tommy DeVito in just one start this year for the Giants at home against Tampa Bay, and they got blasted. They did nothing, absolutely nothing on offense the whole game until when it was 30-0 Tampa. They got a garbage, meaningless touchdown late in the fourth quarter to finally get on the board. But with the game on the line, they did nothing. Tampa Bay's not even got a phenomenal defense this year either. And Tampa Bay totally shut down the Giants' offense with Tommy DeVito at quarterback, 30-7. The Bucs won that game. Now you got to face Baltimore off a bye, off a loss. Baltimore's secondary's been susceptible. Is Tommy DeVito and this Giants receiving core the kind of group that's going to take advantage of that? I don't think so. This Baltimore pass for me. In fact, I'm going to get involved with a first half and full game split. You can lay minus, it looks like in the first half, minus 9.5 with Baltimore in the first half. So that if they're up by 10 or more, any double digit lead at halftime for Baltimore means you're going to cash that bet. Minus 9.5 first half, and a little bit on the minus 16 as well. I normally do not lay big points like this, but I think it's warranted given this situation. You got the much better team that's not going to overlook the Giants because they lost before the bye week. DeVito, they lost by 23 at home to Tampa with Tommy DeVito. They can lose by 23 here, in my opinion. So, yeah, Ravens first half, minus 9.5. Ravens full game, minus 16 for me. We're laying the wood. Get that wood chopper out. We're laying the wood here with the Ravens. Phil, what do you think? Baltimore, New York.
Yeah, chop away because not much to say here. I think the Ravens absolutely crushed them. Tommy DeVito ain't it. Ravens have a very sour taste in their mouth coming off a bye week and a loss. I love that idea of the first half as well. I mean, I would do the same freaking thing. First half minus 9.5. Of course, they're gonna come out guns blazing, and I agree. I don't love seeing minus 16 in this, but I think you're right. This warrants it. I think the Ravens are just going to come out, absolutely crush them. Giants, haven't shown anything as of recent, and it's a simple one for me. Whether or not this overhits, so that's another tough one because you just don't know what the hell the Giants are going to do either on offense. So I don't feel confident in that. I could see this definitely being, a 31 type game. So I agree with you on this one.
Yeah, the Baltimore overs have been great, but I don't want to trust the Giants to do anything for me in this game offensively. And by the way, they're going to have to run the one thing they've done at times has been able to get Tyrone Tracy has been a spark for the Giants. It's been a bright part of their offense, one of the few bright parts of their offense. But Baltimore's strength defensively, if they have one, is against the run. So if Tracy doesn't get going, I mean, you got to rely on DeVito. No, I think it's going to be a tough day there for the Giants. All right, Kansas City and Cleveland. Chiefs 4-point road favorites, 42.5 the total in this game. We'll see how this one plays out. Doesn't the Kansas City offense at some point, now I know they've had a lot of issues this year, there's no doubt. Rashee Rice getting injured early in the year, season-ending injury really hurt. And you can see it week in and week out that they just don't finish drives. What's happened to their red zone offense? What's happened to their red zone execution, Phil, offensively, the Chiefs? I mean, Patrick Mahomes and company, they're having a difficult time finishing drives right now. I know, and they have Pacheco back, so you would think him and Kareem Hunt form a nice duo. But you're right; they're looking for options at receiver right now. DeAndre Hopkins has given them a little something, but it's not the vintage DeAndre Hopkins in his prime anymore. Smith-Schuster's inconsistent. Xavier Worthy's been pretty solid, but like I said, there is just issues right now with the Chiefs finishing drives. Can they finally do that here against a Cleveland defense that I got to admit, I don't think is a defense that I really like all that much right now. They haven't been good in 3 of the last 4 games. and we have seen it. They give up 35 on the road to the New Orleans Saints, 41 against Denver and Bo Nix. They sliced and diced the Browns on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago. They give up 27 to Russell Wilson and the Steelers last week in that game. Of course, Jameis Winston continues to be the quarterback for Cleveland, and he is a gift giver as we close in on Christmas. He gifts points to the other team, not just his own team. And that's the great thing about Jameis Winston. That's why lately in some of these Cleveland games, I've been looking at overs with him at quarterback. They're throwing the ball vertically more down the field. No, there's no doubt with Winston. They're not running it as much. They're trying out Jerry Jeudy, who's been excellent lately, and Njoku. And suddenly you see some good chemistry that he's developing there. But he's also a mistake and turnover machine still. Multiple interceptions in back-to-back games that have resulted in points for both Pittsburgh and Denver, in the last two games. So that's why I lean over here at 42.5. My only I think for Kansas City at some point, you're going to see this team start to click on offense in the red zone. That's the only thing. They're moving the ball, but they're having a hard time finishing drives, and we're seeing that. I think this might be the week they finally do. Meanwhile, like I said with Winston, he is a great over quarterback. He can score points for his own team. He can score points for the other team as well with some of his decision-making and interceptions. So at 42.5, this number is low enough that I'm going to bet over. And then as far as a side is concerned, how the hell can you lay points with Kansas City? Every game is a fucking meat grinder. Every game is down to the wire. It's just week in and week out. These games are a heart attack waiting to happen for Kansas City fans. Look at the margins of victory of their last several wins. 7 against the Raiders, a 6-point win in overtime against Tampa Bay, a 1-point win against Denver here at Arrowhead on that blocked field goal at the end, the 3-point win against Carolina, a 2-point win against the Raiders on Black Friday, and then the 2-point win with the doink field goal by Matthew Wright at the end of the game to escape with a 2-point win against the Chargers. Does that sound like a team you want to lay 4 with on the road right now? No. Yeah. So I'm going to take Cleveland. The concern with Cleveland is I don't like what I'm seeing from them defensively, but I have to take it. Somehow, some way, this is going to be field goal or less probably at the end of the day, just like it always is for Kansas City. So Browns and over is what I'm looking at here. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Jameis is he's in the holiday spirit because he's given a lot of gifts out there. And, he's going to move the ball. Jerry Jeudy's obviously on fire lately. But yeah, he's going to give gifts to the Chiefs as well. The one thing I think the Chiefs are starting to actually figure out is
Jameis Claus.
Yeah, Jameis Claus, love it. I think the Chiefs are starting to figure out, they have the least amount of explosive plays in the league, which is kind of crazy to think about with Patrick Mahomes. But I think as soon as they embrace more of the methodical approach, the better they're going to be offensively. And I think that's kind of what Patrick Mahomes is alluding to in some of his recent interviews. They want to stretch the field, but at the same time, they have the most 10-play drives in the league, so they're getting 2 first downs. They're going to move the ball. I think the Browns are going to move the ball as well. Jameis does that. I love the over here, and yeah, I agree. Chiefs -4, no way. They're 0-7 against the spread in the last 7 games. Browns +4 and an over for me.
Yeah, it's we're at the point where even 4 points to lay it with Kansas City on the road is difficult.
Right.
It's just all these margins. How many of these? Look at these wins that have been by 1, by 2, by 2, by 3. Their last 4 wins have been by 3 points or less. Broncos, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers. All of them 3 points or less. The margin of victory for Kansas City, with the loss to Buffalo nestled in there as well. All right, Dallas and Carolina. We've got the Panthers 2.5-point home favorites, 43 the total. Guess who took Carolina last week? Plus 14.5.
Good for you.
I did against Philadelphia. Flat spot for the
Nice.
Philadelphia Eagles coming off the big Baltimore win. And this Carolina team now 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games. Late season resurgence. And everyone was ready to just throw Bryce Young in the dumpster. And I've got to give Dave Canales some credit. He has clearly not given up on the kid. And credit to Bryce. Bryce used the time when he was benched for Andy Dalton to just sit down, take notes, look at the way things are unfolding with the offense, and maybe learn some things and be better the next opportunity you get. And sure enough, he is making strides. There's no doubt. Some of the plays he made on that final drive when they were
Yeah.
trying to beat Philadelphia last week to keep the play alive, that throw he made inside his own 5-yard line to get that first down, to keep that chance of them getting the touchdown alive was incredible. It's one of the best plays I've seen him make. And he is starting to make some highlight reel plays for Carolina. So credit to him for improving and working at his craft, because he was, let's be honest, dog shit last year and early this year. Terrible, Bryce Young. But Canales didn't give up on him. He didn't give up on himself. And it's a kind of a beautiful thing, actually, to see him playing a little bit better right now for Carolina of late. And I give Carolina credit. This was a season that was embarrassingly bad, for them. And to actually make something of it, win 3 games, they're now 3-10, and then have all these games against good competition where you're down to the wire 3 weeks in a row with the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles, 3 playoff teams from last year, including the Super Bowl champs. You got to be proud of that, if you're Carolina and the effort. Yeah. How about my Canadian from Sherwood Park, Alberta, Chuba Hubbard? And the way he's running the football right now for Carolina at the moment. And the defense, which was, historically bad early in the season, they're still not great, but they've been a little bit better at least. And it's at least given the offense a chance. So now, though, here's the thing. Carolina 5-0 against the spread, 2-3 straight up their last 5 games, but all 5-point spread covers were as underdogs. Are we ready to lay points with them now as a favorite? Now they got to win. I think they can, though, because you got Dallas coming in here off Monday Night Football, off a loss to Cincinnati, another horrifying loss where they blocked the punt, they can't even recover it properly, and Cincinnati goes down and wins the game. Just a brutal loss. It's probably the last straw for their playoff hopes now that they're dropped to 5-8. They're going on the road. I don't know where the excitement is going to be. Micah Parsons is headed for the locker room right at the end of the game. Doesn't even stay on the field to shake hands with any of the Bengals players. Just goes off and pouts. That's not a good body language type look for a team at 5-8 now going on the road on a short week. So I think it's a winnable spot for Carolina. I'll just take them on the money line rather than the -2.5. I lean over, but I think I lean more to the Carolina team total over in this game. Carolina money line as well, minus around 145 with that. What do you think here, Phil? Dallas, Carolina.
I think this is one of the toughest games to try to predict of the whole season or the whole week, just because both these defenses aren't very good against the run. So I think I would look into some rushing prop bets there as well. Rico Dowdle is kind of coming around. Chuba Hubbard has been great all season. Boy, I was really surprised to see how well he did against that Eagles defense. But yeah, I agree here. I think that the Panthers can definitely win this game. Absolutely. Now, am I willing to lay 2.5? I don't know. I'm in that same boat as you. I could see an over here, 43 points. I certainly could see that for sure. But yeah, you know what? I think the Panthers at home, I think they're coming off of a moral victory last week. I think they're feeling good about themselves. Well, the Cowboys, on the other hand, are kind of licking their wounds. They are still playing hard for McCarthy. I will say both these teams have been playing hard. And so, there's no sense of giving up at this point. But, I think after last week with the Cowboys, I think that was kind of hard. That was a heartbreaker for them. So I would definitely lean, Panthers money line here and an over.
Yeah, I agree. I think the total is a little light. And because I do think even though both teams have shown some improvement defensively, they're still not great, and I still trust them more on the offensive side of the football than I do the defensive side of the football. So the over I think is in play, and like I said, I like Carolina. And by the way, Dallas was talking going into the Cincy game, like if we won this game, even if they're faint playoff hopes, they're still alive. But now that they've lost that game, that really concerns me about what we're going to get from Dallas here on the road against Carolina on Sunday. All right. Next up, we've got these are the late games on Sunday afternoon. Keystone State rivalry matchup, the Battle of Pennsylvania. This should be a great game. There's 2 great games at 4 Eastern on Sunday. This is one of them. Steelers and Eagles. Philadelphia, 5-point home favorites, 43 the total. I like Pittsburgh here. Mike Tomlin as a dog is very difficult to turn down. and pass up. 63-34 against the spread in his career as an underdog. We've talked about that, taking points with Pittsburgh, especially in the road dog role in particular. They've been solid. You look at them as a road dog this year. They won outright at Cincy as a road underdog. They won outright at Washington as a road underdog. That's just two examples. They're playing better and better. Highsmith and Watt getting a pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Russell Wilson. We'll have to see if George Pickens plays. He was a late absence last week against Cleveland. We'll see if he plays here in this game. Hopefully they'll have him around. Remember, there was obviously last week for the Philadelphia Eagles in the game against they did have actually Devontae Smith back. They struggled with Carolina. I want to point out something about Philly. While it looks like, 9 straight wins, Cleveland, the Giants, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Cowboys in some of those wins. The Commanders and the Rams wins were pretty good. The Baltimore win was good, but they get Baltimore coming off the Monday night game in the Harbaugh Bowl against the Chargers. It was a good spot for Philly in that game. There's still some signs that Philly's a little overvalued, not nearly as dominant as this 9-game win streak would indicate. And, of course, they were life and death to beat Carolina last week at home, 22-16. And remember, their biggest step-up in class game in this recent stretch was Baltimore, the team that Pittsburgh's beaten already this year. And Philadelphia got the job done, but it was a very close game. I think in this situation here for Philly, I think they maybe win this game, but Pittsburgh getting this number of points. Tomlin as a dog's been a great long-term bet throughout his career. I like Pittsburgh here, +5, in what I think is going to be a very close game. What do you think here, Phil? Steelers, Eagles?
I agree. I'm kind of surprised by the spread, actually. I think the Steelers, they're going to come in. They're the more sound football team. Eagles coming off, a less than impressive victory. A lot of distractions this week, a lot of talking. I think the Eagles, man, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot in terms of their team morale, and I think that's a big deal, especially at this point in the season. But you know what? I've said this before on this show, man. I love betting with Mike Tomlin. I think Tomlin is a solid coach. I hope Pickens is playing with this pick, of course. But, I like Steelers +5 here. And I also think this total, could go over as well. I think the Eagles, with Saquon, he's going to be up, against a challenging Steelers rush defense. But for the most part, I think 43 is a little low for this one. I could see this one kind of having some fireworks towards the end, but I'm leaning Steelers +5 and an over here.
All right, Indianapolis and that's Buffalo, Detroit, the other mega game, mega showdown coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. We've got Detroit 2.5-point home favorites, 54.5 the total. Of course, everyone talking like this could be a Super Bowl preview between these two teams. Now, the dynamics have changed a bit. For the Bills, they lost to the Rams, so you would expect they're going to, really want to bounce back strong. Detroit found a way against Green Bay, they are riddled. They had 13 players on injured reserve on defense, Detroit, going into that Green Bay game. Yeah. And they still found a way to pull it out last Thursday night. What a gutsy team. The offense had to carry them, but they did. Green Bay couldn't stop Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the Montgomery and Gibbs duo running the football. And that's going to be the challenge for Buffalo, whose defense just got ripped apart by the LA Rams after playing pretty well before that. You've still got a ton of injuries on defense. We're going to have to see if any of these players come back, but it is a laundry list of absences on defense right now for this Detroit Lions team. We're talking about multiple defensive linemen, multiple linebackers, including Rodriguez and Anzalone. You're talking about the secondary where Terrion Arnold's been playing through an injury. All kinds of issues for Detroit on defense. Last week, I took the Packers +3.5. They lost, but they covered, which is all that mattered for me. And I also took the Packers team total over, saying right now I think Detroit's just got way too many injuries on defense. And when they face good offenses and good quarterbacks, and I think Josh Allen fits that bill, they're going to have their issues. So I like Buffalo's team total rather than taking Buffalo +2.5. I like Buffalo team total over 26.5. In this game. I lean Bills, but I like the team total more. Total's gone up to 54.5. It is the highest total on the board by a wide margin this week, but it's over or past for me. It's very difficult to bet under with Detroit's defense as depleted as it is. And obviously the offense. And I feel like they're playing a style of football that says high scoring until they get some of the bodies back on defense. They know they got to outscore teams for now to win games like they did against Green Bay. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it on this one as well. I think it's a very high total here, but but between the Lions just being decimated on defense and Josh Allen being hot, Lions, of course they're a machine on offense. So you know what? I love your thought too of that Buffalo team total, but I'm the same way. I lean Bills plus 2.5. I think this is a rebound game for them. I think the Lions, they've been winning a lot. Obviously, I think that there's another loss that's going to come in here, and I think it's going to be to the Bills. So I'd take Bills plus 2.5. And man, I think it is going to be a shootout. I'd go over still, even with this being 54.5.
Hell, it went over this number last week with the Lions and the Packers, and obviously it did with the Bills and the Rams last week as well. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Yeah, that Detroit game was 34-31. Wouldn't shock me if it's 34-31 with these two teams on Sunday either. And by the way, I got to ask you, because you played a ton of football, obviously, what on earth Sean McDermott there at the end? I like him. He's a good coach, nice man. But what is he doing burning the timeout? Good on Tom Brady for being on top of that on the broadcast. Yeah. Burning the timeout, which means the onside kick, if you don't recover it, you're not going to get the ball back. Where if you don't recover it and you still have all three timeouts, you could at least get the ball back with just a few seconds left. Your kicker's made a 60-yarder. You only need a field goal to win. Horrible decision to use that timeout when they tried to sneak it in from the one and didn't get it. Do you agree with that?
I listened to Rex Ryan and Dan Orlovsky argue about this, and I mean Orlovsky's only argument was McDermott was betting on the fact that there's no way they're stopping a quarterback sneak from Josh Allen. But God forbid they do, you're screwed. Or at least get up there and snap it right away and do the same thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know what? If I was playing, if I was the play caller there, I'd get Josh Allen on a rollout, give him the opportunity to run, throw it out of bounds, do something. But you cannot take that risk because that cost them the game. They couldn't kick the ball off and use all three of their timeouts. So, huge mistake there by McDermott. And honestly, some of these late game decisions by McDermott is kind of what makes me kind of leery of the Bills right now. I think that. Man, they got a Super Bowl team, but I mean, if their coach is going to put them in these situations, man, that's unfortunate.
That was bad, and I haven't seen you in weeks, and I know the audience has missed you as well because I know people have asked. We've missed Philip, but what about we haven't even talked to you since the Eberflus debacle on Thanksgiving against. That's an all-time that's unacceptable, inexcusable, moronic, idiotic, whatever words you want to use. You got to step in there and call that damn timeout. Don't let the clock run down to zero. And you even get the shit off.
And I'm assuming 90% of our viewers have played Madden. That is a fucking timeout right there. You take a timeout. You play Madden, you know how to do some clock management. Holy shit, it's unbelievable to me. Some of these NFL coaches, I mean, especially Eberflus, holy shit. He has fucked up a lot.
And it was so bad it cost him his job. That was the last straw. There were players screaming at him in the locker room after that loss on Thanksgiving to Detroit. And they knew that they had to part ways. That
was it.
that was the last straw. That's as bad as I've ever seen. Mismanagement from a coach with the clock at the end of the game. It won't get worse than that Detroit-Chicago game on Thanksgiving. All right, Bucks and Chargers. Chargers 3-point home favorites, 45.5 the total in this game. So I've been riding Jim Harbaugh on the Chargers a lot lately. Took him with the points against Kansas City. That was more fading the Chiefs as a favorite, because they win every game right down to the wire. But I don't know if I like them as a favorite now, the Chargers. I like them when I get points with them as an underdog. Now we're laying 3, and I like what I'm seeing out of Baker and the Bucks. I'm leaning Tampa, actually. Tough spot for the Chargers. Tough loss against Kansas City. They led that game late. They go down the field. They get the Stoink field goal off the upright and in for Kansas City to beat the Chargers on Sunday night. Not to mention there's still a lot of injuries on offense for the Chargers. Disley, the tight end, is Ladd McConkey going to be back? He didn't play last week. And their offense is still a little bit compromised with some of these missing parts on the offensive side of the football. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out, but I'm kind of leaning Tampa Bay here at +3 or better in this game. This is another one, probably slight lean to the over, but I want to wait to see who's going to be back on offense for the Chargers. I like the Buck. I lean Bucks though, +3. What do you think, Phil?
I agree. I'd go Bucks +3. I know yesterday Justin Herbert did not practice. He's banged up. Not sure if he practiced today, so I know that's kind of up in the
He
air.
finished the game after getting hurt last week against Kansas City, but how healthy is he again? Did he
Exactly. And
yeah.
so, you know what? I think that between the Chargers defense, against this Bucks offense, and then just also the way that the Chargers hasn't, they're not scoring a ton of points here. I lean under here on this game, actually, believe it or not. But I agree with you. I think Bucks +3. I mean, I'm not giving the Chargers 3, but I think the Bucks +3 is a pretty good one.
All right, New England and Arizona. Cardinals 6-point home favorites, 46 the total. What's happened to Arizona the last 2 weeks? I mean, it's been rough to see. I mean, actually, it started with the first loss to Seattle, 16-6. What happened to Kyler Murray? It was terrible. Minnesota, they were better, but they didn't finish drives. They settled for field goals, and Minnesota got him at the end with the last-minute touchdown. And I really liked Arizona in that game. They covered, but they should have won that game and not lost to Minnesota. And then last week, more issues for Murray. Interceptions, bad decisions. His balls are getting knocked down at the line of scrimmage, likely because of the height. Murray, not exactly a tall quarterback. But again, 2 interceptions that proved to be costly. Seattle turned them into points. They're not playing great all of a sudden. And Arizona's slumping now. They're down to 6-7, 3 losses in a row. New England, meanwhile, is off a bye week. They lost by 1 at home against Indy. A competitive effort against the Colts, and the Colts were playing to make the playoffs, and they almost played spoiler. I'm not comfortable laying 6 with Arizona right now. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be on New England, but I'm actually kind of leaning that way off the bye with Drake May and the Patriots. But I don't know if I'll pull the trigger, but I don't trust Arizona enough to lay 6 flat out right now. What do you think here, Phil?
Yeah, tough one here. Definitely a tough one. New England's eliminated from playoff contention, so they're still obviously out there playing for their jobs. But Cardinals are still, they're coming off all these losses. I think that they're going to give their best shot here. I think that they need to, obviously. I'd almost try to tease this down if you could with the Cardinals, but also at 46, man, I don't know if I like that total either. I'd almost lean towards an under here as well, but I would lean towards Cardinals money line or tease it for me.
Arizona's offense a little bit difficult to trust right now. They've clearly regressed here these last 3 weeks, and it's not what you want to see. Now, New England's defense has not been great this year, but we'll see if Arizona can get going because they're right. Their offense has not looked right. All right, Sunday Night Football. I know you'll be locked into this game, Mr. Packer fan that you are, Mr. Cheesehead. How about that guy that brought a cheese grater into the Detroit game?
Oh, I know. How do you get in there with that? Isn't that not a weapon?
Doesn't that get blocked? Like, how the hell do you get that through security?
Right.
Where usually sharp objects or anything in your pocket, you don't bring it in with you. They'll find it. It'll beep, when you go through the detector there. But somehow he got that into Ford Field that night. Anyway, Green Bay, 2.5-point road favorites, 46 the total. Seattle's really making me take a look here and see what they're doing. They have played really well. They gotten healthy. Leonard Williams is a one-man wrecking crew on defense for them right now. That defensive line's playing well. Their secondary is starting to make plays, force turnovers. Their defense has not only been healthy, but it's played great here these last 3 weeks against Arizona twice and the Jets. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. This is a tough one because Green Bay off the loss to Detroit, they're going to look to bounce back. I think Green Bay's still the slightly better team, but I think Seattle might have the better defense right now, quite honestly. Green Bay's still a little leaky on defense for me. I have a hard time going against Seattle. I lost going against Seattle twice with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not willing to go against them again, especially with them as a home underdog. So I'm leaning Seattle, but more of a great game to watch for me. Could be some wind in Seattle at Lumen Field Sunday night. So if that's the case, that might explain why the total's gone down from 47 to 46. Phil, Sunday Night Football, this is another good one, Green Bay, Seattle.
Yeah, you know what? One interesting thing, everyone to take a look at for this game is both these teams have been heavily utilizing a 4-by-1 formation. So, 4 skill positions on the left side of the ball, 1 guy on the right. And I mean, I saw some film breakdown of this, and when you do that, it creates matchups in space, right? So if you have DK Metcalf by himself over there in a 4-by-1 formation, are you gonna use 2 high safeties and cap him? And if you do that, run the ball. Charbonnet is hot. Packers rush defense has been less than impressive lately. On the other side of the ball, on the other side of the offenses, Packers, I mean, they're running the ball at an all-time high as well. So, I could see this one being, a really interesting game in terms of just matchups and how people are going to play each other. Jair Alexander, that's a huge key here. I don't know if he's playing, but if he plays, I mean, I think he's going to be a huge, it's going to allow the Packers to play man-to-man coverage, which, you need, you might not want to do that against Jair or against DK, but you know what? It pains me to say it. I don't love the Packers -2.5 here, especially on the road in Seattle. I'd probably lean Seattle +2.5, and also I think an over might still hit here though, even if it's windy out there. I think both these offenses are moving the ball really well.
Yeah, Green Bay a bit of an over team lately. I agree.
Yeah,
Seattle kind of the other way with their defense getting healthier the last few weeks. So it's interesting to see how this total will go. All right, we got 2 games Monday Night Football: Chicago, Minnesota. Minnesota 7-point home favorites, 43.5 the total. See, after last week, no one's going to want to bet Chicago because they got blasted by San Francisco. There was no bump from the new coach taking over in the interim. That being said, yes, Minnesota finally won by a bigger margin against Atlanta last week. Kirk Cousins, though, multiple interceptions, kind of what led that. And then there was a fumble on a punt return or a kickoff return, and Minnesota turned it into points. Minnesota's still not a team I fully trust laying a touchdown. They win a lot of close games. Chicago should feel embarrassed. They, you should still see some pride with the new interim coach. And look, the Niners were just ready for that game. Yeah. So now that it's up to 7, I'm kind of leaning Bears. I'll admit it's tough to back them after last week, but I think now you're getting a value with Chicago and maybe a little overvalued with Minnesota after beating Atlanta and, feasting on turnovers galore from Atlanta in that, and a horrible Atlanta defense too. What do you think here, Phil? Chicago, Minnesota.
I said it already on the show. Tough to beat a divisional opponent twice. I think the Bears, last week was just brutal for them. That's one thing that kind of sticking in my mind here, but I think it was so bad last week that this week they have to come out and play better. I think the Vikings, coming off that win, I think that they're going to be kind of feeling a little bit too good. So I agree with you here. Bears +7. I'd probably lead towards the over here as well. I'm
with you there. I was just about to say I like that because Chicago didn't quit when they were down against San Francisco. They finally moved the football in the second half. Their defense is still lackluster. And look, Sam Darnold, he plays like that this week like he did against Atlanta. He was awesome against the Falcons.
Yep.
They'll put up points in this game.
Yep, exactly. So agreed there.
All right, over, lean Chicago, both of us. All right, Atlanta, Las Vegas Raiders. There's 2 Monday night games this week, and this is the other one. Atlanta, 4-point road favorites, 44.5 the total in this game. So I can't lay 4 on the road with Atlanta. So this is either Las Vegas or pass for me right now. And I know Atlanta's still battling to make the playoffs and win the division. It's down to them and Tampa to win the NFC South. But at the same point in time, I can't lay 4 with their form. Their defense sucks, man. It's embarrassing how bad their pass defense is. No pass rush consistently either. Now, can you back the Raiders is the question. Aiden O'Connell injured. It could be Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Former Falcon, though, against his old team that pushed him aside, that didn't bring him back. Does that make Ridder want to play the game of his life here? Maybe. I lean Raiders. Don't love it, but I lean Las Vegas. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I agree. I don't love this one, but not giving the Falcons 4, on the road here. 44.5. Geez, I don't even know about that with the way both these offenses have been playing. So I'd probably lean towards an under here. But yeah, Raiders +4 for me.
No doubt. All right, there you have it. A great return to the Football Frenzy show from Philip Nelson. Hit the like button, everyone watching on YouTube. All right, best bets to wrap up the show. Phil, what do you got for best bet?
All right, so you know what? I think that this Texans-Dolphins game is going to be a shootout. I think the Dolphins are going to put up points. Their defense is bad, so I think the Texans will as well. I think this is going to be a shootout. I like that over in that game for sure.
There you go. Houston, Miami, over 46.5, best number out there with that. Texans, Dolphins, over 46.5, best bet for Philip Nelson. My best bet here for this Sunday slate, decent slate to choose from. Oh, you know what we forgot to talk about? Holy shit, we skipped this game. We got to talk about it now. Colts and Broncos, Phil. No, that almost
Oh
never
yeah,
happens. I skip a game. Denver, 4-point favorites in that game, 44 the total. Denver's perfect ATS as a favorite this year with Bo Nix. I don't want to go against that. Colts, though, are playing for their lives. I've been on Denver a bunch lately. I still lean Denver. Don't love it as much. I like this over. I think Richardson and the Colts can move the ball. Broncos will. This offense is alive and humming right now with Bo Nix. So I like the over more than anything in this game. What do you think, Colts Broncos?
I agree. I like this over for sure. And then that's an interesting stat about the Broncos against the spread here. They're flying high. I think that they're coming off a bye week as well. They're going to be ready to go at home. Broncos -4 and an over for me.
There we go. Good stuff. All right. And now my best bet here for this Sunday NFL slate. I am going to go to that game between the Chiefs and the Browns, and I'm going to take Cleveland +4. I'm just going to do it. Dare this Kansas City team to cover as laying points. So Cleveland +4 against Kansas City for my best bet here for this Sunday.
That was my second option. That was my second one.
Well,
and I think I like an over in that one too, to be honest. So
yeah, I was thinking of that too. For best bet, there were a lot of good considerations here for me with the best bet here, but I decided, yeah, we'll go with Cleveland here +4 against Kansas City. Great stuff, Phil, and it's great to have you back in the rotation again, of course, here on the Football Frenzy. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Man, it's great to be back. That's about it. I missed you guys, and I missed you, Ian, and I'm ready to be back and watch this incredible slate of matchups.
No doubt, and we'll try to fit some time in to get Phil on for a bonus show for playoff, the college football playoff.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Over the next few weeks. So we'll try to line that up. Great stuff. Hit the like button on the way out. For Philip Nelson, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy NFL Week 15 and good luck. And we will be back next week for another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.